I haven't been using it in a couple of years. This is just talking about some of the projects that we've got going. We're constructing a new site up in Nassau County. We've just dredged Matanzas. We're dredging in the vicinity of Ponce Inlet right now. I think the mobilization is going to be on that in about a month. We just constructed IR2 in Sebastian. It's a huge site to use in that area. We dredge at Crossroads. All these areas around these inlets, a lot of them are dredged every 2 to 3 years. We've looked at all these inlets to see if there's some way that we can minimize the dredging in those areas, whether it's through advanced maintenance, if you will, by dredging an area larger, putting in sand traps, all of those types. So we've been, over the years, we've kind of modified our program to decrease the frequency of dredging and make it most cost effective. But there's some areas that we can't get, no matter what we do, we're still dredging every 3 years. It's the only way we can maintain the area, just for the amount of material that comes through these inlets. Again, it's about 12 to 14 million that we estimate. For funding, we used to get some federal funding for these programs, and of course the federal government's out of money, so we still are trying to solicit federal funding, but the majority of the funding now comes from the Florida Inland Navigation District. Now, why do we do this? Those of you that are not boaters might be wondering, well, we get calls every now and then. One of the things, there's the economics, but there's also the recreational aspect of it, and we'll talk about the economics first. The waterway in Florida is not a big cargo waterway, for those of you that are not on it, or if you haven't been on it. It transports a little bit of fuel oil in certain areas where it's convenient, a little bit of cargo. These numbers are minuscule compared to most areas of Mississippi, Ohio rivers, and so forth. And that's the way the federal government kind of looks at us. They look at us as they call us a low commercial use waterway. 4,869 jobs, estimated 68. This is just from cargo. Now, one of the unique things about the waterway is what you can transport on it. Houses, bridge pilings, rocket boosters, large generators. That's Peanut Island in the background. I think some of you saw a picture of it earlier. This was before it was developed, and that's obviously a weekday because there's not 300 boats around there, but that's heading south. And then, of course, the main thing that we can transport along the waterway, and the main economic benefit, is the mega yachts and the larger boats and the recreational, in general, just the recreational value of the waterway. So there's about 278,000 registered vessels within our district. There's thousands of visiting vessels. We talk about all the people that come down. The snowbirds come down also by boat, for those of you that wait by the bridges and you notice it's busier in the springtime and the fall. And we estimate that makes up about 16 million vessel trips per year in our district. And we're talking about some serious numbers now. That's about almost 15 billion in economic output, 4.5 billion in personal wages, over 100,000 jobs, and then the increase 20 billion in property values just for having the waterway in the vicinity. Now, that's not only just the people that live on the waterway, but also living in the vicinity of it. Or if you say you live down the street and you get to a park or something. Again, there's that Fort Lauderdale boat show. Have to get a picture of the West Palm boat show put in here, guys. Then we looked at it when we did an economic study, and we looked at the waterway. We said, all right, well, what if we didn't maintain it? What if we didn't keep it at the 10-foot depth or keep it at the 12-foot depth? So what if we just allowed it to go to 3-foot control depth, which would if you didn't do any maintenance, that's probably about where it would average out. The bottom line is that we lose about half of the economic input and the economic value of the waterway. And so we did nothing. So for that 12 to 14 million that we put in each year, we're getting billions of dollars in return. We also looked at it if we deepened it a little bit. So if we this is if we maintained it. Sorry, I think the next slide's about deepening it. So again, what this study did, and I get economics makes my head roll sometimes, but what this study particularly showed us is that by maintaining the waterway at the depths that it makes sound economic sense. And then the other thing that we do with this provide waterway access. So our philosophy is let's build it, let's maintain it, and let's get people out on it to enjoy it. We'd like to think that we've got one of the most accessible waterways, maybe in the whole country. I haven't been all over. I've been in the Northwest much. I've been up the Great Lakes a little bit. I've been up and down the East Coast, but we'd like to think that you can really get to the waterway in Florida. got what we call an assistance program, whereby we provide funding to local governments, both state, federal, and local governments, to do waterway improvements. These are all our different waterway categories, if you will. Since 1986, we've provided about $175 million in district assistance. It's resulted in almost 1,000 waterway improvement projects, and that's about $756 million of dollar value in improvement. So you can see that for every dollar that we put in for waterway access projects or recreational projects, we're getting what, $3 to $4 back in return. And then, of course, we've got some other smaller programs that we do to try to help maintain the waterway. We participate in waterway cleanups in every county. I'd like to say that when I started in 1999, we were only participating in about 4 or 5 different counties. We've got 100% participation in our waterway cleanups that we do each year. We've got a derelict vessel program, both small scale and large scale, and we do spoil island enhancements. And we also distribute litany of information. For such a small little staff of 6 people, I think we do a really good job. And that's all I've got. I'll answer some questions. Yes, sir.
On the derelict vessels, is there any way to like prevent them from going under? You know, like you can see, it's an abandoned vessel. Is there any way you can go in there before it goes to the bottom?
That's a great question. He asked if there's any way to prevent derelict vessel before it sinks. I can tell you what happens is that maritime law is one of the oldest laws in our U.S. history. And some of those laws are made to protect vessels and their ownership and piracy and so forth. The law enforcement works very proactively to try to get those vessels marked or tagged or notified if they're before they become derelict. And they're doing a pretty good job. I would suggest to you if they weren't out there, that we'd have a lot larger derelict vessel program or problem, if you will. But I don't know if there's a certain way to just say, hey, we know this vessel's going to sink and we're going to pull it out of the water. There's just too many old maritime laws. But they are doing a pretty good job about it. The main problem with derelict vessel is state funding. When the state budget hit the skids, programs like derelict vessel funding were some of the first to go. I hear that it's coming back. I hear that Tallahassee's trying to fund derelict vessel. The nice thing about it, if a local government or federal or state government or local government can get funding for derelict vessels, then they can match that funding with us and become a lot more proactive.
Looking at your the dredging project for the Intercoastal Waterway, one of the things that prevents the West Palm Boat Show from getting as big as the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show is the depth of the water there and then coming closer to the seawall. What would it take to get those sections?
I'm glad you asked that, because we're already looking at a deepening project for the Intercoastal Waterway for Palm Beach and the marine industries. Mike Antile's up next. He's going to talk a little bit about marine industries, but they're looking at assisting West Palm with potentially dredging the basin there. So, obviously, if we deepen our waterway, you've got the main highway, if you will, deeper, but you need to deepen other areas for access. And Marine Industries is working with West Palm to potentially deepen the basin there for larger vessels. Although I was pretty impressed with, I don't know if anybody go to the boat show this year. I walked down to the biggest vessel right away and started asking those guys what their depth was, and of course, I think a bunch of Aussies on the boat. They're like, "Oh, it's 12 feet, mate." And did a little research, and I think they needed about 9 or 10, really. But they had to do a little spot dredging to kind of get that vessel in there, and it was called the Kismet. And that thing looked like it was like a floating city. I don't know. It's kind of this sort of back.
We're trying to increase the usage of the Intercoastal right out in front of the city of Lake Worth, the town of Lake Worth.
Super.
And we've got a new kayak launching area. We've got a new visitors boat dock, and we've got a launch ramp, but it's all way underutilized. We're talking about trying to get a mooring field in there. We've gotten a lot of the boats out of there, the derelict, but there's an advantage to the city to have some visiting boats and someplace to tie off. Will we talk to you about that?
We can help you with that, yes, sir.
Cool.
We've helped assist. We've helped a couple of communities with mooring fields already, and that is one of the eligible items, and it's eligible for up to 50% cost share funding from us. And you can talk to Janet Zimmerman's in the audience, and she'll be glad to help you either right after or give us a call,
And
thanks.
in addition, you can match it with federal dollars called FEMA, and they will match Mark's funding. You can get it 100% grant funded.
We don't care where you get your source of matching funds, if you will. And Gene's with the Palm Beach County has been very successful in getting funds to do all these wonderful projects that you see up down the county, boating access projects. Is that it? Thank you so much.